according to our sensory perceptions through our sense organs, we see as if the entire universe is made up of things. But in actual reality, there are no permanent things in the universe except a constant activity prompted by the impersonal universal energy. That means in the universe actually there are no things but only activities. Activities manifested by the universal energy. Because of this activity of the universe, everything is constantly changing. Nothing can retain a permanent identity. The creator of this activity, the activity of the universal energy, is identified in these three religions as an almighty God. But according to Buddha, that universal energy is not a person, but an impersonal activity. Buddha has referred to four basic elements of this universal activity. They are happenings, they are events. Therefore, they are called in Pali, the Buddha's language, Bhuta. And the four main elements are called Maha Bhuta. One is called Pathavi Bhuta. The normal verbal meaning of Pathavi is the earth. But in the scientific sense, it is not the earth, but a universal power, universal energy creating a certain activity that we experience as gravity. It is due to gravity that everything on the earth gets attracted to the earth, remains on the earth without floating. They get attached to the earth. They are pressed onto the earth. And that activity of being pressed is called Pathavi. Pathavi Bhuta, it's an incident. It is a happening. It is a happening manifested by the universal energy. Then, due to that happening, things get bound to each other. That is referred to as a binding energy. Pressing energy, then the binding energy, the universal energy. Things get bound to each other. For example, in the water, all particles are bound to each other. They get bound because when they are pressed together. When two elements are pressed together towards each other, they get bound to each other. And that universal activity is called apo. That pressing is called taddha lakkanam, according to Buddha's definition. Pressing together. Apo is called abandana lakkanam, getting bound to each other. When things are bound to each other, when forces are bound to each other, it creates a heat. Heating. It is really an electrical heat when things are pressed together. Now, when I sit on a chair, after some time I find that the seat in the chair is heated when it is pressed towards my body. When we press our hands together, they get heated. Sometimes electrical energy, heat is generated, electricity is generated, magnetism generated when we comb hair. That means pasapaccha vedana means contacts, pressing together, getting bound together leads to heating. Scientifically, when two things are pressed to each other, they get bound to each other, then electrons round the nucleus of each atom get charged by pressing together and bound together with each other. And that electrical charge is called getting heated. And wherever electricity is created, manifested, it leads to magnetism, electromagnetism, that is motion. That activity of heating or generating electricity is called paripacana lakkanam in Buddha's language, and that motion is called Vayo, Vayo Bhuta, vayamati Vayo, motion. Therefore, the four major universal activities called Maha Bhuta are Pathavi Bhuta, Apo Bhuta, Thejo Bhuta, and Vayo Bhuta. There are four incidents. Pathavi, as I mentioned earlier, is being pressed together. Thejo is the result, things getting bound to each other. The result, they get heated. Thejo, the generation of electricity. The result, generation of electromagnetism for motions, moving. Vayamati, Vayo. And all those four activities are manifested by the universal energy. Therefore, even Greek philosophers who lived in the 5th century BC, for example, Hereclitus, who lived in the 5th century BC in Greece, the great philosopher, he made a statement saying, with regard to this universal nature of constant activity, that is in a flux, everything is in a flux, in a motion, he said, no one can step into the same river twice. Once you step into the river once, and when you try to step into the same river again, at the same time the river has gone down. And a new river has come in. That means the same river cannot be stepped into twice. That is the nature of the universal flux, universal motion. The universal is dynamic, always in motion. Everything is in motion, although our sense organs cannot detect such motion. For example, every solid is made of atoms. Atoms are made of a nucleus and electrons moving around the nucleus. Electrons are always in motion around the nucleus of an atom. And in the atom we get protons, neutrons, and protons can't stay together due to the neutron. They remain together, bound to each other. And that is the binding energy of an atom. And that atom also it contains heat, burning sensation. When an atom is split, it turns into a bomb, burning anything. Thus, in the universe, there are 4 constant main activities named by the Buddha Maha Bhuta. Literal meaning is great events, incidents, happenings in the universe. Pressing together, getting bound together, getting heated, and then moving or motion. They are the 4 main activities. Due to this dynamism, constant dynamism of every item in the universe, nothing and no one can retain a permanent identity. That is what is called Aniccata. That dynamism is referred to by the Buddha as Aniccata, inconsistent, changing, impermanent. That dynamism leads to transformation of everything. The universal energy itself gets transformed, and every manifestation of the universe gets constantly transformed. The transformation from one state to another state is called by the Buddha Dukkhata, another feature of the universe. Aniccata, the dynamic nature; Dukkhata, the transformation caused by the dynamic nature; and the result, Aniccata. Nothing can retain, nothing and no one can retain a permanent identity. All these are the result of the universal energy, constant transformation. Both our mind and the body get constantly transformed. Attaining Nibbana and Parinibbana means escaping from this universal activity, from this universal dynamism and universal transformation. Going beyond the universal energy is the ultimate goal of all the Buddhists. That means extinction of transformation. In this sense, the transformation is named as samsarana, motion. And attainment of Nibbana, Parinibbana is called Nissarana, cessation of motion. Cessation of motion means cessation of activity. Activity is not a thing, but the constant manifestation of the universal energy. And as I mentioned earlier, the 4 main aspects of this manifestation of universal energy is pressing together, getting bound together, getting heated, and manifestation of motion. Even water, when it gets heated, it gets moved. There is motion in the water, boiling water. Heat generates motion. Therefore, Buddha explained the universe in a modern scientific way, but not using the modern scientific labs or instruments or methods. It is through his own insight at the enlightenment he realized this real nature of the universe, that is creative, that is dynamic, that is always in a state of transformation without retaining a permanent identity. That is the ultimate truth the Buddha realized about the universe in which we live. And that universe is not a thing but an activity. The basis of that activity is that impersonal universal energy. We can experience this within ourselves as well as outside ourselves. In meditation, one realizes both our mind and body are constantly changing. They are in motion.